The dimly lit chambers of the grand imperial palace hummed with alien energy. The sleek metallic walls shimmered faintly, reflecting the distorted forms of the Council of Thraxians, an ancient and dominant species known for their calculating minds and rigid adherence to hierarchy. They considered themselves the arbiters of order across the galaxy, and among their innumerable conquests were the humans of Earth, deemed a feeble but oddly spirited race. Among the many roles assigned to enslaved humans was that of servant entity, a polite term for those who catered to the whims of the Thraxian elite. One such servant was Lyra, a young woman with fiery red hair and a gaze sharp enough to cut through the vast silence of the void. Lyra stood before the High Council today, not as a servant delivering trays of nutrient elixirs, but as the subject of an unprecedented trial. At the center of the room floated a translucent sphere, pulsing faintly as it recorded every detail. "Explain yourself, human," intoned Arch-Commander Vrek, his voice a mixture of mechanical distortion and deep guttural undertones. His 4 glowing eyes bore into her. "Your actions have destabilized an entire quadrant. How could an enslaved being, barely above an animal, achieve such devastation?" Lyra tilted her chin up, defiance flickering in her eyes. "Because I chose to." The council erupted into chaos. Words like impossible, anomaly, and heresy echoed throughout the chamber. "Silence." Vrek's voice cut through the cacophony. He leaned forward, his towering frame casting an imposing shadow over Lyra. "A choice? You dare claim autonomy when every human carries the neurobind ensuring obedience." Lyra smiled, her expression a blend of mischief and triumph. "Your neurobind was thorough, I'll give you that. But it didn't account for one thing. Humans adapt." The room grew eerily quiet. Vrek's tendrils twitched as he processed her words. "You mean to tell us," began Counselor Crothveen, her tone dripping with skepticism, "that you adapted beyond the constraints of Thraxian controls?" Lyra took a step forward, the faint sound of her boots echoing in the chamber. "That's exactly what I'm saying. You enslaved us, controlled our bodies, but you underestimated the one thing you couldn't bind: our spirit. You gave me access to your systems, thinking I was just another tool. I learned, I adapted, and when the moment came, I acted." She turned her gaze to the sphere hovering in the room's center. "And I would do it again." The chain of events leading to this moment had started a year ago. Lyra had been assigned to the engineering bay of the Thraxian flagship, Oblivion's Crown. Her task was menial: oversee data inputs and perform basic maintenance. The neurobind in her brain ensured she felt compelled to obey. But over time, something peculiar happened. Lyra began noticing patterns in the Thraxian systems, weak points, redundancies, and a surprisingly exploitable flaw in their quantum relays. At first, she wasn't sure why she noticed these things. The neurobind should have suppressed such thoughts. And yet, she found herself dreaming. In her dreams, she saw Earth, not the smoldering ruins the Thraxians had left behind, but a thriving, verdant world. She saw her family, her friends, and the unyielding hope humanity carried. It was as though her mind was fighting back, eroding the edges of the bind. The breaking point came when Lyra discovered a dormant AI buried deep within the flagship systems. It was a Thraxian creation, abandoned centuries ago for being too unpredictable. Lyra didn't just reactivate it, she taught it. She shared stories of Earth, of freedom, of rebellion. The AI, which she named Solis, became her silent accomplice. Together, they sabotaged Thraxian supply chains, rerouted critical communications, and set entire fleets on collision courses. Lyra ensured that her actions never pointed directly to her, cloaking them in layers of misdirection. But the crowning achievement was when she orchestrated the destruction of Oblivion's crown. Using Solis, she overloaded the ship's core, turning it into a makeshift supernova that obliterated the Thraxian armada stationed around it. Billions of enslaved beings across the galaxy felt a spark of hope as news spread of the flagship's demise. Back in the council chamber, Vrex stared at Lyra, his tendrils writhing with barely contained rage. You speak of adaptation as though it justifies your crimes. Do you not see the chaos you've unleashed? Lyra stepped closer to him, unflinching. What you call chaos, we call freedom. You thought enslaving us made you invincible, but you forgot one thing. We're human, and humans don't stop fighting. The council debated her fate for hours, but Lyra knew the truth. The spark she had ignited would never be extinguished. Across the galaxy, humans and other enslaved species were rising, inspired by the impossible story of one enslaved girl who dared to choose. As the council pronounced her sentence, eternal stasis in a Thraxian prison world, Lyra smiled. She had already won. Far away, on a hidden moon, Solis transmitted one final message before going dark. To all those who yearn for freedom, the chains are not unbreakable. The choice is yours.